It begins with rhythm. It always does. Not the rhythm of life, but the rhythm that drowns it. There was a time when mankind sang to praise, when melody was a bridge between man and God. Now man sings to forget to bury silence under sound, to fill the emptiness where awe once lived. The world no longer prays, it performs. It no longer listens for heaven, it amplifies hell. And the stage, my friend, has become the new altar. You may think the phrase, spiritual darkness, belongs to monks and mystics, but look closely, it dances now beneath strobes and smoke. It is not ancient witchcraft that curses this generation. It is the worship of emotion. The human heart, once the temple of truth, has become a concert hall of chaos. We call it freedom. We call it self-expression. But freedom without virtue is only slavery disguised in light. The soul that worships rhythm without reason soon forgets the difference between ecstasy and emptiness. The first festival is the festival of the flesh, a celebration not of music, but of indulgence. Its gods are pleasure and pride. It promises liberation through sensation. Lose yourself, it says, and you will find joy. But joy is never found through loss of self. Only despair is. What begins as dance ends as descent. The flesh always demands more sound, more thrill, more body, more sin, and when the morning comes, the dancer is still hungry, still hollow, still haunted by the silence he tried to escape. Then there is the festival of noise, the one where silence is forbidden because silence reveals truth. Here, volume replaces meaning. Here, chaos drowns conscience. The music does not lift, it consumes. You cannot hear God when you are busy worshipping the bass, and yet the crowd cheers, mistaking deafness for ecstasy. But the soul cannot thrive in constant noise. It needs stillness to breathe. The devil's oldest trick was never destruction, it was distraction. And nowhere does distraction disguise itself better than under the illusion of togetherness. The third is the festival of the self, a mirror masquerading as a movement. Every lyric, every beat, every light screams the same sermon. You are enough. You are divine. You are the center of the universe. But the soul was never meant to orbit itself. The man who believes he is his own God has no one left to save him when he falls. And fall he will, for no heart can carry the weight of its own worship. Pride does not empower, it isolates. And isolation, though it feels like freedom, is hell in disguise. Next comes the festival of forgetting the event, where reality dissolves into trance, where intoxication is called transcendence. The crowd sways, eyes closed, chasing unity through oblivion. But the union they find is counterfeit. It is not fellowship, it is escape. They do not meet each other, they dissolve into nothing. They do not touch the divine, they numb the divine image within themselves. For to forget suffering without healing, it is not peace, it is possession. The mind that seeks constant escape eventually forgets how to return. The fifth is the festival of fire, the seductive kind. Here, passion replaces purity. The flames that rise are not holy, but hungry. It is the ritual of the restless, those who confuse adrenaline with awakening. They worship intensity, not intimacy. But the fire that burns without love will consume its worshippers. The light that shines without truth blinds, not enlightens. And as the night deepens, they mistake the heat for holiness, the crowd for communion, the rhythm for revelation. Then there is the festival of the void, the quietest, and therefore the most dangerous. It does not tempt through pleasure, but through meaninglessness. Its gospel is nihilism, its rhythm despair. Every lyric tells you nothing matters. Every chorus mocks faith, mocks morality, mocks hope. It pretends to be deep, but it is hollow. It makes cynicism fashionable and reverence foolish. The audience laughs at virtue, cheers for chaos, and calls it art. And when the lights go out, the emptiness remains vast, echoing, eternal. The seventh and final is the festival of the false light. It shines brighter than all the rest, but its glow is cold. It is the festival of good vibes only, where spiritual language is stolen and sold like merchandise. Here, enlightenment is entertainment, and peace is a product. The performers preach positivity without repentance, healing without holiness, power without purity. It feels divine, but it denies divinity. It preaches love without truth, acceptance without accountability. It is Lucifer himself, dressed in glitter, whispering, "You are light enough without God." 7 festivals, 7 mirrors of the same rebellion. They differ in sound, but share one song, "I will not serve." And yet the tragedy is not that men attend them, but that they mistake them for heaven. They seek transcendence because they were made for it. The problem is not the desire, but the direction. You were meant to dance, yes, but not around idols. You were meant to sing, but not to drown your soul. The music itself is not evil. It is sacred when aimed rightly. What corrupts it is not the melody, but the motive. If you listen closely, you will hear it. The hunger beneath the volume, the longing beneath the lights. Every beat says the same thing. We want to feel alive again. And that, dear soul, is the doorway through which redemption still enters. Even in the darkest festival, grace waits for the weary dancer to stop. Just stop and remember silence. For God still speaks, not through the speaker, but through the stillness after the song. The crowd cannot save you. The noise cannot heal you. The light cannot love you. But the one who gave you music can. When the rhythm fades and the lights die, he will still be there humming a melody older than time, a song not of escape, but of embrace. The question is whether you will hear it. For the darkness that haunts our festivals is not in the stage, nor in the song. It is in the soul that has forgotten who the music was made for. And when that soul remembers, truly remembers, the beat becomes prayer again. The festival becomes worship again. The darkness becomes dawn. You see, music was never merely entertainment. It was a mirror for the soul, a vibration between the mortal and the divine. In its purest form, it was prayer that could be heard. Before man learned to build towers, he sang beneath the stars. Before he sought kingdoms, he sought meaning through melody. The ancients knew what we have forgotten, that song is not neutral. It shapes what it touches. It magnifies what it mirrors. When a man sings, he is either ascending toward light or descending toward shadow. And in our age, the stage has replaced the sanctuary. The crowd has replaced the congregation. The performer has replaced the prophet. We tell ourselves it's harmless, that music is just rhythm, just art, just sound. But art, when it loses its aim, becomes a weapon. It does not strike the flesh. It pierces the soul. What you consume with indifference consumes you in silence. It rewrites your emotions without permission. It instructs your instincts without your awareness. 1,000 beats can teach you theology not of heaven, but of appetite. And the tragedy is that most of us dance to our own undoing, joyfully, innocently, unaware that the rhythm is reprogramming our reverence. The festivals of this century are not gatherings of celebration. They are rituals of identity. They no longer unite around truth, but around sensation. We do not ask, is this beautiful? But does this feel good? And what feels good becomes what is worshipped. The artist becomes the priest of the new religion, emotional immediacy. He absolves the crowd, not of sin, but of seriousness. He promises salvation through surrender, but not the holy kind, the surrender that empties, not the surrender that fills. And oh, how clever the darkness has become. It no longer attacks virtue. It imitates it. It speaks the language of love and peace, yet replaces their source. It takes the longing for transcendence, that holy hunger placed by God, and redirects it towards sensation. The crowd sways as one body, hands raised, faces glowing, tears streaming. They believe they have touched heaven, but they have only touched emotion. Emotion is not evil, but it is fragile. It cannot save. It can only seduce. And when the lights fade, the spirit that danced in joy collapses in exhaustion, because it was not joy, it was escape. Every generation has its songs. The Psalms once taught men to praise through pain. Now, playlists teach them to forget. Our ancestors sang to remember God. We sing to avoid remembering ourselves. The beat has become a bandage for the wounds we refuse to heal. It numbs the conscience long enough to make rebellion feel like revelation. And so, darkness enters not through violence, but through volume. It does not strike. It seduces. It does not demand obedience. It offers indulgence. Do not misunderstand me. Sound itself is sacred. It was the first instrument of creation. And God said, the universe began with a voice. But when that voice is removed from music, music begins to mimic power without purity. What was made to heal begins to harm. For the artist who forgets the creator soon becomes a creator without conscience. And art without conscience is witchcraft, a manipulation of wonder for control. You can feel it when you stand amidst the crowd, that strange tension between awe and emptiness. The lights flash, the bass roars, the air vibrates with electricity, and for a moment you think, this is it. This is transcendence. But it fades. Always it fades. You can make the music louder, the stage brighter, the dance wilder, but the silence always returns. The stillness you fear is the voice you need. The voice that whispers, this is not joy, this is hunger. C.S. Lewis once said that the devil's greatest achievement was to persuade man to believe he had outgrown evil. But evil does not die. It evolves. It no longer hides in graveyards. It hides in glamour. It no longer prowls in shadows. It performs under lights. It no longer tempts through fear. It tempts through feeling. The serpent does not hiss. It harmonizes. It does not say, bow to me. It says, be yourself. It does not promise death. It promises euphoria. But when euphoria replaces reverence, the soul starves in the midst of plenty. And yet, even in the heart of the noise, there is hope. Because beneath the surface, hunger for sensation is a deeper hunger, the one that no festival can satisfy. The desire not to feel more, but to be whole again. The longing not for sound, but for meaning. And meaning, once found, transforms music back into what it was meant to be, an echo of eternity, not an escape from it. When a man learns to listen rightly, the same melody that once enslaved him can now free him. It depends on the posture of the soul. The same song that once glorified sin can become a confession if heard through repentance. The rhythm that once tempted can now testify. For the power of music lies not in its notes, but in its direction. Every sound must bow to a source. The question is only which one. Do not despise sound, but discern it. Do not reject joy, but root it in truth. For there is a kind of dance that saves not the one that forgets, but the one that remembers. The dance of David before the ark, the song of Mary before her God. These were not performances, they were surrender. The body moved because the soul overflowed. The rhythm was not rebellion, it was revelation. Our festivals could become sacred again if only we changed the audience. If only the performer sought not fame but faith. If only the crowd came not to escape but to encounter. For the light that truly saves does not blind, it beholds. The music that truly heals does not drown silence, it listens through it. The festival that truly liberates does not summon darkness, it awakens light. There is a sound that fills the world, but empties the soul. It is not silence, but noise, without meaning, a flood of rhythm that drowns reflection, a melody without memory of heaven. It is the song of our age, hollow, loud, endless. We dance to it, we work to it, we sleep to it, until it becomes the background music of existence itself. Yet if you listen closely, beneath the beat, you can hear something tragic, a faint, echoing cry. We have forgotten why we sing. Music was once the servant of meaning. Now meaning serves music. The modern age does not write hymns, it writes books. We do not compose to glorify, we compose to monetize. The human voice, once an instrument of praise, has become an instrument of persuasion. We no longer sing to express the soul, we sing to manipulate the senses. What was once an offering has become an advertisement. And this, I fear, is how the sacred dies, not through blasphemy, but through boredom. The hollow song has a purpose, to keep man numb. Its rhythm is relentless, because silence terrifies him. Silence demands honesty. In silence, man must face his emptiness. But if the noise never stops, he never has to listen. He can drown his conscience beneath the chorus, his guilt beneath the glamour, his loneliness beneath the bass. It is not joy he seeks, it is anesthesia. The music of our age does not awaken, it tranquilizes. It does not lead us to wonder, it lulls us to sleep. And all the while, the soul that was made to sing with angels hums itself into oblivion. Every civilization has had its songs, but ours has perfected distraction. We have made worship out of spectacle, awe out of addiction. We have confused emotion with encounter. The crowd no longer gathers to behold beauty, but to be devoured by it. The lights flare, the ground trembles, the sound consumes. It feels like transcendence, but it is only intensity. And intensity without intimacy is imitation. It mimics the sacred while rejecting its source. It gives the thrill of transformation without the truth that sustains it. This is the genius of spiritual darkness. It never removes the desire for God. It redirects it. It replaces prayer with performance, repentance with rhythm, devotion with dopamine. The heart's longing for the eternal is not erased, only exploited. That is why these festivals feel so powerful, because they touch something true, but twist it towards something false. The crowd believes it has found unity, but what it has found is uniformity. They all move together, but none move upward. They all shout together, but no one is listening. We were made for song, but not this kind of song. Our music was meant to echo the first word, the divine vibration that summoned light from the void. When music forgets its maker, it becomes the void again, loud, bright, empty. The hollow song does not teach, it hypnotizes, it does not elevate, it enchants. It calls not to the image of God in man, but to the animal that sleeps beneath it. That is why, when the night ends and the lights fade, the soul feels lower, not higher. It has danced, but not ascended. The hollowness of modern sound mirrors the hollowness of modern life. We speak without conviction, consume without gratitude, love without loyalty, believe without truth. We have traded symphony for static, wisdom for volume, reverence for rhythm, and the great irony is that we call this progress. We measure spiritual decay by technological achievement, unaware that the brighter the stage, the deeper the shadow it casts. The darkness of our age is not ignorance, it is indifference. We do not hate the sacred, we simply do not care for it. And that is the most dangerous form of darkness, not the kind that denies God, but the kind that replaces him with entertainment. The soul that laughs at reverence will kneel before sensation. And once you worship feeling, you will never stop hungering, for feelings fade faster than faith. But there is hope, a thin, radiant thread that still hums through creation. For even in this age of hollow song, the divine melody is not silent. It waits in the margins, in the pauses between beats, in the hush before dawn, when the last echo dies and the heart grows still enough to hear again. God's voice has not disappeared. We have simply drowned it. The silence we fear is the very space where he still speaks. When a generation grows tired of noise, it will seek truth again. When the lights lose their power to thrill, the soul will remember that light was never meant to entertain, it was meant to enlighten. When the festivals fade and the fatigue sets in, man will rediscover the oldest truth, that music was never about escape, but encounter. The song was never meant to make him forget the divine, but to find it. And so, my friend, when the next great festival calls, when the rhythm rises and the world rushes to dance, pause. Listen not just to the sound, but to the silence beneath it. Ask yourself what spirit is being summoned here. Does it lead you outward or upward? Does it make you freer or merely louder? For the heart that cannot discern the difference between freedom and frenzy will always mistake captivity for celebration. There will come a day, and it is coming soon, when the hollow songs will lose their spell. The crowd will tire, the lights will dim, and the music will stop. And in that silence, something ancient will stir. A voice, steady and eternal, will whisper through the ashes of the stage, "Be still and know that I am God." And in that moment, the soul will remember its melody, the real one, the one that was never written by man but breathed into him before time began, the one that turns darkness into dawn, the one that no festival can summon and no night can silence. That is the song worth waiting for. That is the music that saves. There always comes a moment after the final song, a moment so quiet it feels almost sacred, though most people are too distracted to note it. The lights dim, the applause fades, the screens flicker into darkness, and suddenly there it is silence. It hangs in the air like smoke after fire, heavy and revealing. For the first time all night, you can hear your own heartbeat, and in that stillness you realize what the music had hidden, that the crowd was never one, that the ecstasy was never peace, and that the noise was never joy. It was only noise, magnificent, consuming, intoxicating, but still only noise. The silence after the storm is the most honest sound in the world. It is the sound of truth returning. When the amplifiers die, you begin to hear what your soul has been trying to tell you all along. It whispers not in rhythm but in revelation. You cannot fill a spiritual void with sound. The heart that was restless in the dark will remain restless beneath the lights. For what it seeks cannot be produced by speakers or songs. It can only be encountered in stillness. The modern world fears silence because silence exposes the self. We have built an empire of distraction precisely to avoid this moment, the quiet reckoning after pleasure, the confrontation that happens when the crowd disappears and we are left with our conscience. We flee the stillness as if it were an enemy, not realizing it is mercy itself. Silence is not absence. It is invitation. It is the pause between creation and confession, the breath where the eternal voice waits to speak. When the crowd goes silent, you begin to see clearly. You see that the hands you raised for rhythm were meant for prayer. The tears you shed for the music were meant for repentance. The longing you mistook for freedom was actually your soul's cry for God. You see that you were not lost because you were wicked, but because you were distracted. The enemy did not need to turn you against heaven. He only needed to keep you entertained. It is in that awakening that the music's spell begins to break. The trance lifts. You begin to remember what joy actually feels like, not the feverish high of the moment, but the steady flame of meaning. True joy is not performance. It is peace. It does not vanish with the spotlight. It deepens in the dark. The soul that learns to rest in silence begins to hear again the melody that never stopped playing, the melody of grace. It is quiet, but it is constant. It is the song of existence itself, patient, pure, unending. C.S. Lewis once wrote that the doors of hell are locked from the inside. The same is true of the heart in darkness. We keep the door closed, not because light has left us, but because we have forgotten how to open. The noise of our generation has become the lock, the endless consumption, the constant motion, the artificial unity. And all the while, the divine stands outside, knocking not with thunder, but with tenderness. The silence is his key. When you allow that silence to enter, even for a moment, the soul begins to thaw. The restlessness starts to soften into recognition. You realize you were not made for perpetual stimulation, but for sacred stillness. The mind that once raced for sensation now craves meaning. The heart that once beat for applause now yearns for authenticity. You begin to understand that what you called aliveness in the crowd was actually avoidance, the desperate attempt to drown a deeper hunger. The darkness that music festivals summon is not in their instruments, but in their intentions. They gather souls not to elevate them, but to exhaust them. They offer catharsis without change, connection without covenant, transcendence without truth. And when it ends, the participants return to their lives emptier than before, addicted to an echo that can never satisfy. The enemy does not need to enslave you with sin. He can enslave you with sensation. He will give you everything you want, except peace. But there is a miracle in awakening even in this late hour. When the crowd goes silent and the spirit stands naked before truth, redemption begins. The same person who once sought escape in noise can find freedom in stillness. The same artist who once performed for applause can create for eternity. The same listener who once drowned in distraction can rediscover devotion. God wastes nothing, not even your wandering. The silence you once feared becomes the threshold to transformation. And perhaps that is the true purpose of every false light, to make us yearn for the real one. The soul that has tasted every imitation will finally recognize the genuine when it comes. When you have danced beneath 1,000 neon suns and still felt cold, you will know the warmth of divine fire when it touches you. When you have chased every sound and still felt unheard, you will finally recognize the voice that calls you by name. When the crowd goes silent, the concert ends, but the conversation begins. The divine does not speak through volume. He speaks through vulnerability. He will not compete with your distractions. He will wait within your emptiness. And when you finally stop running, stop resisting, stop performing, you will hear it, the music behind all music, the rhythm beneath all rhythms, the still small voice that turns chaos back into creation. You will realize that you were never made for the festival. You were made for the fellowship. You were never meant to lose yourself in the crowd, but to find yourself in communion. The silence is not punishment. It is promise. It is not the end of joy. It is the beginning of peace. For when the crowd goes silent heaven begins to sing. Every awakening begins in silence, but it never stays there. For silence is not the grave of sound, it is its resurrection ground. When the soul is finally emptied of noise, when the mind grows still enough to listen, the first true note returns faint, fragile, eternal. It does not roar like the festival's bass, nor dazzle like its lights. It is simple like breath, it is pure like truth. It is the sound that spoke creation into being, the word that once said, "Let there be light." There is music that enslaves, and there is music that saves. The difference lies not in the melody, but in the motive. The former begins in pride and ends in exhaustion. The latter begins in surrender and ends in freedom. When the artist kneels, his art becomes prayer. When he rises again, it carries power beyond performance. For he has learned what this age has forgotten, that sound is spiritual before it is sensual, that rhythm is revelation before it is release. True music is not the echo of emotion, but the expression of order. It is heaven translated through human breath. In this age of darkness, it may seem naive to speak of redemption through sound, but redemption was always the business of transformation, not escape. The divine does not destroy what was misused. He reclaims it. The same instruments that once glorified pride can glorify purpose. The same stage that once summoned frenzy can summon faith. The same crowd that once lost itself in illusion can find itself in truth. The hand that once strummed rebellion can strum redemption. Every sound can serve the sacred if the soul that wields it is willing to be sanctified. C.S. Lewis once said that our desires are not too strong but too weak. We are far too easily pleased. That is why the festivals fail us. They offer a fragment of eternity, and we settle for it. They give us the sensation of transcendence without the substance. They show us light that does not warm, unity that does not heal, beauty that does not sanctify. But once the soul tastes the real thing, every counterfeit fades. Once you have heard the divine note, the resonance of truth, all the noise of the world becomes unbearable. When you begin to live in harmony with that note, something changes. You start hearing music everywhere, not in the chaos, but in the coherence of creation. The wind through the trees becomes a symphony of grace. The rhythm of your heartbeat becomes an act of worship. Even your suffering begins to sing, because pain, when offered, becomes praise. You start to see that all existence is musical, not random, but relational. Every atom vibrates with obedience. Every creature plays its part in a cosmic composition whose composer is love. The awakening of sound is not the invention of something new, but the remembrance of something ancient. It is the rediscovery of order in a world that calls disorder freedom. It is the realization that beauty is not entertainment. It is evidence. Every melody that moves you, every chord that stirs your heart, is a whisper from the source of all harmony. You do not need to escape to find transcendence. You need to attune. The divine is not absent. He is unheard. In the redeemed festival, music becomes revelation again. The lights do not blind, they illuminate. The rhythm does not enslave, it invites. The crowd does not lose itself, it lifts itself. The artist does not dominate the stage. He disappears into his message. And the people do not leave emptier. They leave filled not with emotion, but with meaning. The sound does not end when the music stops. It echoes in the conscience. That is what worship was always meant to be. Not noise, but knowing. And in that awakening, a new kind of artist arises, one who understands that the gift of music is not power, but participation. He does not claim to create. He collaborates. He listens before he plays, prays before he performs, weeps before he writes. He no longer uses sound to escape the silence. He lets silence instruct the sound. His stage becomes an altar, his song becomes intercession. The crowd may still cheer, but he no longer hears applause as validation. He hears it as a response to glory, not his own, but the one that passes through him. This is the sound that defeats darkness, not by volume, but by virtue. The enemy can imitate beauty, but he cannot sustain harmony. Chaos always collapses on itself. Only order endures. And the highest order is love, not sentimental, but sacrificial. The melody that flows from love cannot be corrupted, because it is not self-serving. Every true artist knows this instinctively, that the most powerful art is born not from self-expression, but from self-emptying. When ego dies, inspiration lives. So, the Great Awakening of sound is not about new genres or new instruments. It is about new hearts. Hearts tuned to grace. Minds unafraid of stillness. Souls that sing not to be remembered, but to remind. For every man is a musician, whether he knows it or not. Every thought is a note. Every choice is a chord. And when those notes align with goodness, when those chords resolve into virtue, your life becomes a song that even heaven listens to. When that happens, you will no longer crave the noise. You will no longer need the lights. You will no longer mistake intensity for intimacy. You will discover music that does not fade. When the concert ends, a sound that plays beneath every breath, within every prayer, between every heartbeat. It is the sound of being fully alive. It is the song of the soul in tune with its creator. The festivals of darkness may continue for a time, and their stages may still glitter, but their spell is weakening. For the light is returning quietly, irresistibly, through every redeemed artist, every awakened listener, every soul that chooses silence over spectacle. The true music is rising again, not from the speakers of man, but from the Spirit of God within man. And when the world finally stops shouting, it will hear it, the eternal rhythm that never ceased, the symphony that holds the stars, the harmony that heals the heart. That, my friend, is the sound that was there in the beginning and will remain in the end. The music of creation, the song of redemption, the melody of the Maker. There will come a night unlike any other, not because the lights will shine brighter, but because they will finally reveal what they were meant to reflect. A night when the crowd no longer gathers to escape, but to awaken. A night when the artist no longer performs to be praised, but to praise. A night when the music no longer competes with heaven, but cooperates with it. This is the night when the light returns to the stage. It begins quietly, as all holy things do. No thunder, no spectacle, no command, just a subtle turning of hearts. One artist decides to write truth instead of trend. One soul decides to listen more deeply instead of louder. One listener decides to feel with the spirit instead of the flesh. And just like that, the kingdom begins to reclaim the airwaves. For the battle for the soul of man has never been fought on earth alone. It has always been fought through sound. There is a reason every culture, every empire, every army marched to music. Rhythm shapes reality. Melody carries message. Sound determines spirit. And for too long, the stage has been surrendered to the counterfeit. The lights have been used to blind rather than to guide. But the light is returning now, not from new technology or louder amplifiers, but from purified intention, from those who no longer wish to entertain the masses, but to enlighten them. When the light returns to the stage, the art changes first. The performer no longer seeks to be seen. He seeks to reveal. His words are not slogans. They are seeds. His rhythm does not seduce. It restores. The music does not celebrate rebellion. It celebrates redemption. And the people who come to listen no longer arrive as consumers, but as pilgrims. The crowd becomes congregation. The venue becomes temple. The concert becomes communion. This transformation does not require the world's permission. It begins wherever one human heart chooses to offer its gifts to the giver again. The dark festivals will not fall because they are forbidden. They will fade because they are forgotten. When truth returns to beauty, lies lose their charm. When worship returns to art, idolatry becomes unbearable. The counterfeit cannot survive the presence of the real. In the returning light, music becomes prophecy again. It tells of who we are and what we might become. It no longer repeats the mantras of self, but the mysteries of grace. Its purpose is no longer to distract from suffering, but to dignify it, to turn wounds into wonder. The drum beat becomes the pulse of resurrection. The harmony becomes the sound of reconciliation. Even sorrow has its song now, and its melody is mercy. C.S. Lewis once said that the greatest works of art are not those that shout the loudest, but those that whisper eternity into the ear of time. That is the kind of art this world is starving. Not entertainment, but encounter. Not noise, but knowing. Not glamour, but glory. The light that returns to the stage does not demand attention. It commands reverence. It makes the audience silent, not because they are bored, but because they are in awe. And this is how you know the true light has come, when the spectacle turns to stillness, and the stillness feels full. When the people stop clapping and start kneeling. When the song ends and nobody wants to move because they realize something sacred has passed through them. That is not showmanship. That is sanctity. It cannot be faked because it does not come from talent. It comes from truth. The world may still mock such gatherings. It may call them naive, outdated, even dangerous. But mockery has always been the weapon of the hollow. It cannot create. It can only corrupt. And while the cynics laugh, the awakened will sing, quietly at first, but faithfully. And faith has always been the frequency that undoes the darkness. The return of the light does not mean the end of music. It means its redemption. It means every note, every word, every sound can once again point homeward. The divine does not discard creation. He reclaims it. The enemy does not own art. He only occupies it until love drives him out. And love always drives him out. Imagine it the great reversal. The same frequencies that once summoned despair, now summoning hope. The same beats that once glorified lust, now stirring compassion. The same stages that once celebrated vanity, now echoing with virtue. Imagine the crowd swaying again, but this time in worship, not oblivion. Imagine the lights pulsing again, but this time revealing faces lifted, not lost. Imagine music so pure, it makes the angels pause and whisper. They remember. For that is the purpose of all true art. To remind us who we are, who made us, and who waits for us. The return of the light is not the invention of something new. It is the remembrance of something eternal. It is the moment the creation remembers its creator. And when that light falls on the stage again, when truth steps back into the spotlight, something deeper than applause will rise repentance. Not the kind born from guilt, but the kind born from gratitude. A recognition that every good gift, every voice, every instrument, every note was never ours to own, but ours to offer. Then the music will rise again, not as rebellion, but as revelation. The rhythm will pulse with life. The melody will move like prayer. The harmony will heal like grace. And the crowd will no longer be seeking escape. They will be seeking encounter. The light will no longer shine for the stage, It will shine through it. And somewhere in that sea of faces, someone will lift their eyes and realize the darkness is gone. It did not vanish in thunder, it dissolved in truth. For this is how the light always returns quietly, humbly, beautifully, through those who finally remember that the song was never about them. It was about him.